Ounce of Prevention is sponsored by...
I'm inside of me. You're inside of you. If you touch me without permission, I'm gonna tell on you.
All right, we're rolling.
I'm going to call them kitty heads. We'll go for blue, which is the, I think...
Lucifer, the light of heaven. That sinner never was forgiven. Banished to his lowly station till he checks out in Revelations. Why you keep up your lie makes no sense to me. They made me a throne in heaven, and I picked him for the company.
Hi, and welcome to Ounce of Prevention. I am joined today by author, superstar, Matthew Francis. Thank you, Matthew, for being on Ounce of Prevention.
Thank you, Vickie.
So first of all, Matthew, your book just came out a couple of months ago.
Yes.
My Resurrected Spirit. And I don't know how else to explain your book. It's because it's horrific and the most positive thing I've ever written. How someone can take positive out of the experiences you've had is it's inspiring. I mean, it's just... So, can you tell me what it was like to process those stories and share them in this format?
Yeah, I, first off, just start writing. That's what I would just tell people. And because I'm an older person, so I really take a notebook and I would just write and write and write. And with the knowledge that not everything you write is going into your book. Keep that in mind. And then for me, and this is probably indicative of trauma as well, I have trouble with a timeline. So as you notice that my stories really couldn't stand on their own. Mm-hmm. So I would write a lot of different stories, and then I tried to organize it linear, but my experience didn't feel linear. So then I would kind of organize it maybe by the way that felt, like sort of sectioned off. So when I would go to write, to be in all honesty, it was very painful at times. Sometimes I had a friend who walked in once as I was writing. He was like, "Matthew, you all right?" And I just looked up, and I guess tears had been streaming down my face. Mm-hmm. So sometimes it would be hard to write because I knew that that's what I was going to go back into. Mm-hmm. But I did find it so incredibly cathartic, and it would just take on a life of its own. And I would really encourage people, of course, to set a time and just be devoted. Like, that's when you're going to do it, every day, whether it's, an hour or 2 hours or whatever it is, and just know that's what you're going to do. But then I would have to have time for closure and be able to sort of, shelve it so I could get on and do just sort of daily things. So.
Really good advice.
Yeah.
So when I kind of envision publishing, I imagine that you write your manuscript, you firm it out, you try to find an agent, and then a publisher looks at it and tears it apart. And so I've talked myself out of doing that for a very long time. You, however, you self-published. Can you tell me how that experience was to... you did it without that support of a publisher as well.
Right.
So tell me about the experience of doing it yourself.
Well, I went through Amazon because anyone can really do that. So I wished I would have maybe had a deeper editing, but I did have some editing, but it was really just cleaning things up. It's not a difficult experience. I would really just encourage people to do it. There's all kinds of formats for that, and different publishers who maybe specialize in different areas, so that's worth looking at as well. I think it's an exciting experience. It's fun to build your cover. It's fun to see this, something you've been working on for so long finally come to fruition. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a delightful experience. It's starting to get picked up, so in all honesty, I have a feeling that it will be picked up by a larger publisher, and because things are really, doors are opening, and it's really selling like hotcakes, actually. And that's one thing that's good about Amazon, too, is you can keep track of the sales. Mm-hmm. So I did put in a strategic ad, and I'm getting sales through the roof.
So now tell me about promoting the book. There's not a book tour as such, but you've been promoting this on your own, actually quite minimally. People have just been picking this up.
Word of mouth. Yes. And that's huge, though. For me, I just sort of energetically put it out there, and people liked it, and so they'll tell other people. And then I've had, Falmouth Footlights, Michael Tobin hosted me for my launch. I've had different churches take me in, and now, I mean, it's been being read all the way to California, New York, so I'm being invited all over the place. I did put in an ad though, so I should, be honest about that. So I put in an ad for Maine Women's Magazine, which reaches all of Maine. And then I also put in an ad for Sojourners Magazine, which reaches 150,000 readers. And it's a Christian magazine because I feel that my book is a Christian book. So as far as promoting, I really don't have the funds to promote. But I do need to get an agent because it is hard to keep track of the speaking and that sort of thing. So, yes.
Well, that's very encouraging to hear that you self-published a book and you're so busy that you're looking to have somebody help you with an interest.
Very much so. Yes.
Matthew, tell me about a lot of the material in this book talks about your mental health journey.
Sure.
That you've had various diagnoses over the years, and you really, to see somebody where you are right now is not at all the picture of you a few years ago.
No.
Can you tell me about about that process of being diagnosed and put in a box?
Yes, and it's unfortunate because, to be honest, I've been diagnosed at a very young age. I was first diagnosed with infantile autism. And I was about 2.5 years old, which we know now is called autism spectrum disorder. And then I was diagnosed, as you know, from the state hospital chapter. So I was about 16. So the system kind of got its claws into me pretty early on. I found, I've transitioned from female to male. But that's been a cinch compared to transitioning from a person who's seen as persistent and severe mental illness, which really translates into hopeless. It translates into, collect a disability check, stay out of crisis, watch Netflix, just don't bug me. But there's really no expectations beyond activities of daily living. So to go from that mentality, which also impoverished myself, because sometimes I wouldn't try things simply because, poor people don't do that, or mentally ill people don't do that. And so that's the template I held, because that was put on me, and they didn't need to put it on me too long. I held it firm to it, to start pushing outside those boundaries, realizing what does this mean? I'm poor, I can't do this. What does this persistent and severe, does anyone ever overcome it? You know what? They do. They can. I believe that. I have. And as you know, I don't have any environmental wonderfulness to overcome that. And neither do I have anything genetically superior. And yet I did do it. And it started with a belief that I was just as valuable as everybody else. Because I always felt that everybody else was valuable. Everybody else was precious, except for me. And once I could extend that olive branch just to myself, things changed. They've shifted. And that little shift will build momentum. And so how am I doing? Much better, but I found that to be a more difficult transition. To get people to take me seriously as a healthy, sound, intelligent man. It was not an easy task. And just an interesting example is, if I didn't tell anyone about my mental illness, no one would know I had one. But if I did make that mistake and tell you, you could tell by the way people talk to you or the way they question you. Or which also fascinated me is that they would take me as a mentally healthy person until I disagreed with them. And then it was, do you need your meds? What the heck do I need my meds for? We're just having a disagreement. But those are our own biases that we need to look at. Even mental health professionals need to look at that. And we've also pathologized people to the point where people are really scared of the mentally ill. If someone's struggling, they are too afraid to even go out and have a cup of coffee. They feel like they have to be a professional. You don't need to be a professional to be a friend to somebody. Right. And we don't need to be scared of it. And this is really unfortunate because the media have, personified us as being usually violent or just off the charts. And I don't believe that it's really truthful, first off. And second off, you get what you expect. And that goes on both sides of the fence. So if someone has an expectation, so-and-so is going to flip out or so-and-so can't do it, they may inadvertently set it up that way. Right. Or if I was to think of myself, and it would be easy, there'd be times where I didn't want to follow through. And I knew I could have easily pulled the mental health card because no one would have blamed me. And it can be a convenient card to use sometimes. But I had to stand firm and not do that, which meant being uncomfortable. And we are afraid to be uncomfortable. Somehow we think we're going to spontaneously combust. We don't need to worry about it. We're not going to. We can breathe through it, get through it on the other side.
I think discomfort means there's some growth happening.
Yes.
And when there's when you're comfortable, you're probably starting the process of dying almost, because you've just stagnated, leveled off, and kind of going down the other side of that hill. It's fascinating to me to think of giving up a disability check and making that phone call, because it was probably a call, and I would imagine a series of emails for the message to actually get through that I don't want this support anymore, I'm going to try to make it on my own. I mean, that had to be terrifying.
It was scary, and it's not 100% complete either right now. I wouldn't be able to financially survive right at the moment, but disability does have a format where you can work for a length of time before they just boot you off. The problem is that people are genuinely scared to get off. You lose a lot of benefits. You lose housing. You'll lose, your medical care in some cases. In my case, it is scary, but it's a matter of integrity, and it's a matter of, being disabled is for people who truly can't work, and I don't feel that I'm there anymore. I feel that someone who's written a book, who started a talk show, who's developed workshops, it's time. It's time to make that leap. So I'm making that leap, but I'm in that period where I'm a little bit buffered, and I am grateful that disability does have that. So.
And you said you use the word convenient sometimes to see the checks, see the money coming in or the support. Convenient doesn't seem to be how I would describe it. Mental health seems like one of those things that you can call in and you can have a sick day, but you cannot call into a job and say, I need a mental health day, because they go, oh, wait a second.
Imagine if you called in and said, I'm going to call, I need a mental health day because I want to take it before I get sick.
Right.
Or can you imagine calling and saying, my heart's broken today, I just can't go to work.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So, we don't seem to have the language for that. And even though I think trauma and mental illness is starting to get its due in the media. I think we're starting to really pay attention, in part because we're starting to recognize, a lot of more people have struggles than we're really being honest about. Right. In the case of, me being severe and persistent, that almost is a category of its own, because we're the people you see on the streets, we're the people in group homes, we're the people, if we make our bed and keep a clean home and pay our bills, that's, a big deal. And I'm not trying to poo-poo those things, but there's more to life than activities of daily living. Right. But, it wasn't a matter of convenience. It's a matter of being scared. It's a matter of, can I do this? What would happen if I can't? And certainly those thoughts go through my mind. But again, go ahead and breathe through it and take that launch, take that step.
You're going to be uncomfortable anyway, so
yes,
just get through the day.
Yeah.
Why not make it uncomfortable and go through a workout and get a little exercise to make yourself feel better, or put yourself through an uncomfortable situation, because it's already pretty painful.
Yes.
I think that's So you mentioned your talk show.
Yes.
And we know each other, of course, from CTN.
Yes.
And you've had a talk show now for, how long has the show been?
It's been a little over a year, I think. Yes.
Okay. Yeah. And I didn't realize, coming from Canada, we don't have public access TV.
Okay.
So it was people like yourself who kind of paved the way. I didn't realize that that was something. So tell me about the therapeutic value of being able to book the studio in Portland, Maine, and book a show.
I think
it's a talk show host.
It's huge because it's taught me an awful lot. We talk a lot about mindfulness. It teaches me to be mindful, because you have to really be present and you have to be flexible. And one thing, folks like me, severe and persistent mental illness, which I hate that term, but for the record, we know how to talk with providers, and we forget how to do the give and take. And it's really unfortunate, because if you notice, if you'll talk to people like me, we do two things well. We either talk too much or we become the therapist. We don't seem to know how, and I feel like these interviews have taught me how to be a flexible person, so I know the give and take. You also have to be curious, and that's really important. And I think we shut off our curiosity. Folks like me, we tend to shut it off and just tend to believe these. So, that's one of the things. It's empowering. It's nice to have these conversations. It also brought me out of that impoverished mentality, because then I met other people and I started going to mixers. And, you know, again, if you're severe and persistent, you basically just socialize with other people who have severe and persistent mental illness. And it's just the self-repeating cycle. So this has been therapeutic, I mean, unbelievable. I also subscribe very much to holistic modalities. So I believe in energy work. I believe in nutrition, hardcore. I believe in exercise. And we know if you treat your body well, you're going to feel better. That just goes without saying. So.
But you know what I find really interesting about the diagnoses that you've had? When you read this book and hear anything about your life, everything that you've had all along seems to be a very natural response to what happened.
Trauma, yeah.
Who, I think if you didn't have those reactions and responses, there would be something wrong.
Right.
When you're severely abused, when you have neglectful, you know, caregivers, and these horrific things happen to you, how do you not have OCD or anxiety to cope with your environment and to get through? Because your brain needs that, you know, it's a safety net, it's surviving.
I love the way you said reaction. What if we did call things a reaction as opposed to a disorder, to a mental illness? So a person who's having a normal reaction after, you know, God forbid, a sexual assault, or getting violently beaten up or whatever, but again, we think of ourselves as, this is just what we've adopted, but you know, we created it and we can fix it. So I think people are starting to push back and say, hey, wait a minute, I haven't had, you know, a depressive episode for 8 years. Maybe I'm not depressed anymore. Maybe I don't have to call myself that anymore. So even me with the PTSD, what if it was post-traumatic stress reaction, which implies that it would be something I would eventually overcome, as opposed to something I would simply manage and get by. So some of it's in our language. We need to just think of a different language.
So being able to break out of these boxes that you've been put into, I would call it resilient.
Yes.
So to put that back to you, if something were to happen to you now, whether it was, I have no idea, I don't want to even put anything out to the universe, but if something bad were to happen in your life now, do you feel like your resilience is in place and you wouldn't, like, what's your rock bottom now?
First off, I don't have a rock bottom. Second off, bad things do happen. I'm transgender and I'm public. So the thing that my life is going to just be easy peasy is not so at all. But better things have happened because I allow that now, because I don't limit myself. I am super resilient. And I do believe my faith is a big part of that. I believe, because I do take care of my body, that's huge. And I do have a good social circle. Those are really key things. I also feel that I really truly get our interconnectivity to each other. So I operate with a real tremendous sense of responsibility for the universe, for myself, and for each other. And so my decisions are based on those accordingly.
So in terms of reaching out for help and stuff, you know, whether it's resources or providers or anything, where do you go when you need help? When you pick up that phone, how do you access resources?
Well, first off, I probably don't pick up the phone that much. I pray, first off. But if I was going to pick up the phone, I would pick up the phone for my friends. I would want to have some fun. Sometimes you got to put your emotions on hold and go out and just live, and then go revisit it and realize once some time has passed, it's not as intense.
Right. So tell me what is on the horizon for Diversity Dignified.
Yes. Well, Diversity Dignified is about to launch nationally. Through PPM TV under the guidance of Bill Humphreys, who's an award-winning documentary director. I've already done the pilot episode, and he's going to launch it in New Hampshire first, and then YouTube, and then it's going to go in air nationally. So I don't know that I could do much more for that. As far as my book, I'm on the prowl for an agent. I do think it'll be picked up. That seems to make sense when you're making as many sales as I'm making. So I guess what's on the horizon, I don't know, but I'm looking forward to it.
So you've also got lots of speaking engagements.
I do have
You're
several,
traveling.
yes, I do. And, some of them are out of state as well, so that's really something to look forward to. And, I would love to have a book tour, to be honest with you. I feel that the message, from what I'm hearing, people really enjoy the book, and I do feel inspired by it. I know it's a tough read at times, but, it's very hopeful. And,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's a very hopeful book, and I really feel like the world could use the message a little bit. So I know that might be bragging a bit, but I would like to see that. Yeah.
I love that you qualify that with, I'm sorry, am I bragging? It's okay to be confident about a beautiful book that you wrote, about a show that allows other transgender individuals to speak, to tell their story. I mean, the venue that you provide is amazing. I almost said with your background. Forget that, because I was going to qualify
With
it.
anybody.
That's
With
just the language that we
yeah.
use. For anybody to provide that forum and to discover that you can put a show on public access.
Yep.
And to follow through with it and not just sit in front of the TV and tell your story to the camera.
Right.
Which, is tempting.
Sure.
But to give people that forum and that platform to speak from and to defend transgender rights and to talk about mental health the way you do. I mean, it's beautiful to
Thank
see.
you.
So please don't, not around me. Do not
All
downplay
right.
what you've done. Because
No apologies, right?
no apologies.
apologies.
This is a fantastic work that you've put together. And I commend your courage in doing this because it is tough to share your story.
Yes.
And I would imagine that when you pressed send on that final edit and sent this out, there had to be a moment of,
Yes.
but
Yes.
at the same time, if you don't have any secrets anymore,
No.
nobody
It's
hurt you.
freeing. It's freeing. It's very freeing. Yeah.
So you don't need to worry about someone saying, "Oh, Matthew Francis, I just got your resume for this job. I understand you might be." Nope, it's all out there.
Actually, my deficits have now
Become your asset.
my assets. Yeah, they're my gifts that I bring.
Absolutely.
It's funny because I was so afraid to come to the table, and those are the gifts I now bring to the table.
So it's almost like reframing.
Yes.
What you were looking at
Reframing,
before. It might
yes.
have been bad things, and
Yeah.
there's certainly assets to be an onlooker into your life right now. It's just inspirational and beautiful.
Thank you.
I thank you so much for being on the show, and best of luck with the book and with the show, and just thanks so much for being.
Thank you thank you for having
Wonderful
me.
inspiration.
To his lowly station till he checks out in Revelation.